It is time to talk about Chapter 245 of Jujutsu Kaisen. And if you like Jujutsu Kaisen and other anime content, subscribe for more. And this week we are coming off the 2-week break cliffhanger of Sukuna's court trial with Higuruma and Yuji. Though instead of getting an immediate follow-up to that cliffhanger, this chapter opens up with Hakari versus Uraume instead. And it is no secret that recently JJK has had a lot of cutaways, but this is one I actually like a lot. I think that Uraume is just a great matchup for Hakari because Uraume is just so stuck up and up their own ass, and Hakari is so free-spirited that when you actually see them fight, the interaction is a lot more interesting than I expected, and something I didn't think I wanted until it happened. But the actual chapter opens up and we see Uraume fighting Hakari, and he is actively keeping her away from Sukuna. Uraume uses Frostcom and freezes off Hakari's entire arm and shatters it. And Uraume thinks that they have deadass won here before Hakari, who is obviously in jackpot, just grows back his entire arm and grabs their face immediately. And we get the line of dialogue that Uraume says the healing of Hakari's RCT is faster than both Gojo and Sukuna's. I know they only mentioned the speed here as being top one, but really what do you need besides speed when it comes to healing with RCT? I guess you could say the precision of healing is very important as well, but Hakari has also showcased that previously. And while he may not be able to output his healing like Yuta and Sukuna can, when it comes to self-healing, it just sounds like he's the best. And I've had this feeling about RCT for a while that if you have an independent RCT or a pseudo-independent RCT, kind of like Hakari's jackpot, you're just in a better position. You don't run the risk of having your brain burn out on the same level as a character like Gojo or Sukuna would, especially if you have something like this deer. This stupid looking thing is exceptionally OP, okay? Imagine this thing is in your shadow and you are just plugged into it like a life support. You summon your Shikigami, it sits there, emits RCT, and you just get to live the best of both worlds, and you don't even have to put double the curse energy into this thing's RCT from the looks of it. They say that automation is the future, and really, the future is looking an awful lot like a deer and some pachinko machines. You know Uraume never saw a domain like this back in the Heian era. But once Uraume is done glazing Hakari's RCT speed, they throw a chunk of ice right through his gut. And it looks like a pretty damaging hit, but you know, this is Hakari in jackpot, so he immediately heals this as well to Uraume's shock. And Uraume is a slow learner and is starting to put the pieces together that Hakari might actually be OP. Hakari delivers a kick to Uraume, who then tries to grab his leg and freeze that as well. And it's a little hard to tell what's happening in this panel, but it seems like his leg got frozen off and shattered but regenerated so fast that he gave her a kick in the face. Or he just slipped out of his pant leg and then kicked her in the face. Either way, the important thing here is that the Jordans are safe and Uraume got kicked in the face. We then get some dialogue from Uraume talking about how modern sorcerers constantly work towards avoiding loneliness. Or to be more specific, the morality of being human, or human nature, is something that Sukuna has clearly given up. And Uraume, being the head chef of a cannibal and the #1 Sukuna fan, is obviously on board with all of the above, so of course they're going to think morality is worthless, just like Sukuna. And Uraume says this in regards to Hakari, that he doesn't have this fear of loneliness and they are no longer going to view him as human. And it's not to say that Hakari doesn't have morality, because he does, he just has this lack of fear that so many other people do. Uraume begins to shatter the pipes in the ground and form a giant ice ball while Hakari thinks back about Yuta Akotsu. And he talks about his respect for him, or more so his fascination with him, but I viewed it as respect because he thinks that Yuta is someone who always does what needs to be done when it needs doing. And I can't help but feel like his words are partially influenced by him just seeing Yuta suck it up to go kill Kenjaku. Yuta and Yuji have a particularly close relationship with Gojo as their sensei, Megumi too, but you know, he's indisposed. So watching Gojo get chopped in half on TV, it probably affected these two more than everybody else, but Yuta still went off to kill Kenjaku because he's got a job to do. And really, that's what JJK is all about. It's about watching your friends die in front of you and then sucking it up, and then finding new friends to jump the asshole who killed your other friend. And so you can get your old friend Megumi back, so you can jump the guy who is probably about to kill your new friends. And speaking of new friends dying, let's talk about the end of this chapter and the conclusion of the court trial. Sukuna gives a no rebuttal, and he is pretty much immediately found guilty, and then he gets the confiscation and death penalty. And Higuruma gets what is probably the last executioner sword of his life, because Sukuna's curse technique is in fact not stolen. Because instead he has his curse tool taken, and then he bombards them with slashes as the chapter ends. The ending of this chapter is pretty controversial, and a lot of people don't like the whole curse tool being stolen instead, but I don't actually have a problem with the curse tool in particular. Curse tools have been stated to have curse techniques imbued into them before, and confiscation usually goes from the least detrimental to the most detrimental. So I think that's fine. Honestly, the curse tool being taken is okay, but my real problem lies with the fact that this curse tool exists pretty much just for this reason. I already found it a little goofy how we got this thing in the first place. Yorzu creates this thing for him, and then we don't get a single mention of it up until Uraume care package drops it right to him after the Gojo fight. And I thought this care package dropping was a bit goofy already, but I figured, okay, Gege is just trying to give us the Heian era experience. Because the big trident, the Trishula, or I forget what they called it in the actual translation, it is coming as well, almost guaranteed. But the Kabutoke pretty much went on to do absolutely nothing except be a get out of jail free card in the most literal fashion. And it just feels bad because it doesn't feel like the characters themselves got outsmarted here. It feels like the most convenient thing ever happened for Sukuna. Higuruma and Yuji's plan was actually really good, and I feel like it just didn't work because Gege Akatami said it's not going to work. The only other part of the story I feel this way about is when Hana fumbled on Megumi, because really the convenience of Megumi being the only vessel this would work on was just stupid. This doesn't ruin the fight or the chapter for me, but it does leave a bad taste in my mouth, and it's just something I wish wasn't so convenient. As for Kusakabe and Higuruma surviving the slashes, well, that's pretty much the same thing I've been thinking for a while, and that the reinforcement of most of these characters is probably a lot higher than people think it is. I see a lot of people talk about the space dismantle and ask, why isn't Sukuna just spamming this thing? Well, it's the same reason Gojo doesn't spam Hollow Purple, because he can't. Only the basic cleave and dismantle are shown to be spammable, and that's exactly what he continues to spam against everybody. And even if we ignore all of that, Sukuna is just not the type of guy to go around instantly killing people en masse. Unless you're a Shibuya citizen or somebody trying to bargain with him, he usually kind of toys with people because he's just that arrogant. Granted, Yuji did kind of shake him up a little bit the other chapter. And Kusakabe makes a pretty big point last chapter that not having RCT, that is the main thing that is going to lead to your death here. We had a 1 month time skip for a reason, and as far as base reinforcement goes, all of these characters are probably pretty similar. And as for next chapter, their whole objective now is getting Higuruma in on Sukuna with the Executioner's Sword. And to be fair, that was the original plan, it just got a lot harder here, and what chances do I actually give the Executioner's Sword of killing Sukuna here? Well, when we really look at all these story structures in JJK and all the data books, and we take a look at Higuruma's characters so far in Jujutsu Kaisen, we take all of that into account, and then we plug in the Executioner's Sword, we come out to about a 0% chance this thing actually kills Sukuna. There is just no way that Sukuna is dying to Higuruma's Executioner's Sword, despite how OP this thing actually is. And I think we should really prepare ourselves in the next few chapters for characters who start getting chopped in half, because these characters, Ino, I'm sorry, you're doomed. And beyond quote-unquote fodder, we should also expect at least one of the heavy hitters to die here, because that just seems kind of inevitable. And Hakari has some pretty big death flags, but so does Yuta, and either way, I think one of these two in particular is going to die. The only one truly guaranteed to survive this fight right now is Yuji. Everybody else is on the chopping block. And this really doesn't feel to me like the final Sukuna fight, and I feel like there will be another one once Megumi is actually free. And I feel like the last one will be a classic 2v1 with Megumi and Yuji versus Sukuna, because that just seems to be where JJK is headed. Kusakabe said they'll be able to survive the merger if it actually occurs for like a week, and Sukuna will probably still be around after that, so I'm guessing you're going to have a more intimate fight after this is all said and done. And right now, freeing Megumi, that is rapidly shaping up to be the only true W they get out of all of this. We'll have to see how that plays out, but those are my opinions on this chapter. I think this one's overall pretty good. I just like seeing Hakari fight Uraume. And like I said, the curse tool stuff, not my favorite, but doesn't really ruin anything for me personally. And maybe you feel different, but you know, everybody has a different consumption of media. But if you like content like this, subscribe for more. And as always, thanks for watching.